Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to have a look at a collaboration beer between two of the best known craft breweries that Sweden has to offer. Both are very well respected, both produce many nice beers, and they have featured on the channel many times before. For the home brewery then, we are going to head up towards Gothenburg, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast, and we're going to have a look at a style that we have had many examples of from them over the years, and the away brewery has also become very well known for this style in more recent times as well. But yeah, for this beer then, we are going to return to Stigbergets Bryggeri, and this one is brewed in collaboration with Omnipollo, who are from Sundbyberg, just a little bit to the northwest of central Stockholm. So it's called Uno 2, or Uno 2, I guess we should say, since it's a Swedish beer. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one is another New England Hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, curious to see what this is going to have in store for us. I did try the original Uno, if I remember correctly, and that was very good. And like I say, we know that both breweries are very capable when it comes to the New England Hazies. So looking forward to seeing what this beer has in store for us. As always though, before we taste the beer, I'll take you through a little bit of a history of both the breweries involved in this one. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Stigbergets and from Omnipollo. Those will no doubt be added to it at some point in the near future. And you can of course check out the playlist of different beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Swedish playlist. But let's get cracking and have a little look at the brewery histories then. We'll start with Stigbergets since they are the home brewery in this case. This was where this beer was brewed. So to tell you a little bit about Stigbergets Bryggeri then. As I've mentioned to you already, Stigbergets Bryggeri are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg up on the Swedish west coast, and the company was founded by Nils Hultkrantz and Richard Simonsson, and these guys owned two bars that shared the one kitchen, Bar Kino and Hagabjörn's Cafe, which can be found on Linnegatan in the city, and they both opened back in 2007, and this building is actually an independent cinema. If you want to see what it's like, you can go and check out my out and about video that I filmed there back in 2019, if memory serves me correctly. But originally the idea that they had was that they wanted to brew a few beers themselves that they could sell in the bars, but this led to them kegging the beers and selling them to other pubs, and then eventually they started bottling them in November of 2014. The original beers were mainly English and German styles, but of course they really started to become well known when they focused on the more hoppy American styles of beer. The original head brewer was Ole Anderson, who is of course one of the co-owners of OO Brewing. He was the creator of the Narangi on the OO side of things, but also the GBG Beer Week beer of 2016, and also the Amazing Haze. And it was really those three beers that kicked off the New England IPA style in Sweden. He was replaced for a period of time back in 2017 by Barnaby Struve, who was one of the vice presidents at Three Floyds over in Munster in Indiana near Chicago in the US. And yeah, they kind of have been building gradually since then. Around that time, they moved to a brewery at Partihalarna in Gothenburg, where they were brewing 5,000 litre batches, but they also began working on some sour beers in that facility as well. At this point, they started selling their beers in the 440 milliliter cans as opposed to the 330 milliliter bottles that they'd had before, and they started to export their beers a lot more as well. These days, they have a brew team of Ollie Banks, who used to work for Beavertown in London, and also Lucas Munraid, who worked for All In Brewing, one of the numerous gypsy breweries operating in the Gothenburg area. But as of summer 2020, they're now in a brewery in Ringen, and they've started brewing some lambic beer there as well, and they're looking at the possibility of opening up sewing facilities there and having a bar at the brewery as well, which will be very, very cool. So lots of Swedish laws and things to kind of work around for this to make it happen. But they opened up a bar in Stockholm in 2020, and they've also got their own folköl shop in Gothenburg these days as well. So for those of you who don't know, folköl in Sweden is anything that is 3.5% and below. That can be sold by any private enterprise, but anything above 3.5% has to be sold by the state-owned Systembolaget stores. That's just how the rules work over here. But Omnipollo Stigbergets, of course, brain isn't working. Stigbergets are very, very well known for these New England hazy IPA styles. So if that's a style of beer that you're interested in, this is one of the breweries that you really want to check out. As of September 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 210 different kinds of beers according to Untappd. And yeah, like I say, best known for their New England hazies. So that's everything you need to know about Stigbergets. If you want to learn more, of course, though, you can check out the brewery website, which you'll find in the video description below. So let's go over to Stockholm now for the Omnipollo side of things. So Omnipollo, of course, was founded back in 2011 by Henrik Fenty, who was a long-time homebrewer, and Carl Grandin, who is a clothing designer. But the two met and, you know, they decided that they wanted to start a brewery together, having discussed how insular the craft beer scene was in Sweden, but also abroad. And they said that they wanted to reinvigorate the craft beer scene, both from a stylistic and from a gastronomic sense. And they felt that the partnership between a home brewer and a clothing designer was very, very logical. So yeah, that's why Omnipollo had all these really kind of unusual designs on their cans and things like that, and you can see that here, of course, as well. But the name Omnipollo is derived from omnipotent chicken, so omni and then pollo Spanish for chicken, and these guys were gypsy brewers until 2020. They opened the Omnipollo's Hat in Stockholm a few years prior to that, though, as a collaboration with Pizza Hut, and it's quite a popular place in the city. That is somewhere that I do want to go and film an out and about video at some stage, so you'll see that appearing at some time soon. But in 2019 they opened up another bar in Hamburg in Germany, and they also had another one for a period of time in Gothenburg as well, and there's one these days in Tokyo in Japan. So when I go to Tokyo again, I will be going and checking that out. But in March of 2020 they announced that they would open their own brewery in Sundbyberg, which is to the northwest of central Stockholm, and this is in a former church, and it had previously housed Sundbyberg Bryggeri. But apparently the brewing capacity that they had there started off at around 100,000 litres of beer per year, and they have been working to expand this, and they say that it should reach 600,000 litres of beer per year at maximum. I know that they're brewing a number of their beers at Total City over the water in Denmark at Svinninge. So some of the Omnipollo beers that you will get will come from there, and I think they are still brewing a few things down in Belgium at the Proefbrouwerij in Lochristihoofd near Ghent, but I'm not 100% sure about that, so don't take my word for it. But that was where a number of the Omnipollo beers were brewed. They have brewed a number of things with Buxton in England, and also with Stigbergets Bryggeri in Gothenburg as well, who are very well respected. Mainly the stouts were brewed with Stigbergets and with Buxton. But yeah, other than that, the only other thing to say about Omnipollo is that as of September 2022, according to Untappd, these guys have produced around 365 different kinds of beers, and when it comes down to it, probably my favourite beers from these guys would be the Fata Morgana, which was one of the first New England IPAs they did, and also the Nebuchadnezzar, which is an old school West Coast double IPA. That one is very, very nice. But yeah, they do some really good Lassie beers as well. The Mango Lassie series, I think they just call it the Lassie series, is also very good, so that is most definitely worth checking out. But yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Omnipollo for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, again, you can check out the brewery website and have a look at that, and you can check out the other reviews that I've done, both from Omnipollo and from Stigbergets. But yeah, that is the end of the brewery history section of this video, so we can get on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll just let you have a little closer look at the can once again before we open it up. This one is a 440 milliliter can there, you can see on the back. Omnipollo Stigbergets. So I think technically speaking this one is an Omnipollo beer brewed in collaboration with Stigbergets, but it says on the can that it's brewed at Stigbergets Bryggeri Göteborg. So yeah, a bit confused as to who can be considered the home brewery in this case, but you know, I don't think that matters that much as long as the beer's good. But yeah, 8% New England Hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA, and it looks very nice. So yeah, it cost me 55 Swedish kronor this one, so that's about €5.50, £5 maybe about $6 American, something like that. But let's get it out into the glass and see what we have. The Uno 2 from Omnipollo in Stockholm and Stigbergets in Gothenburg. It's actually been quite a while since I drank a New England IPA, or like a full can or a pint or whatever of a New England IPA, so this should be quite interesting, this one. So there we are. Let me just line the can up again for you. So as you can see, before the head disappears, this one poured with about a 2/3, 3/4 finger of a quite bumpy white head. That has of course faded away to be pretty much nothing, but you can see the bubbles are pretty damn big. There, just let it focus. You can see they are pretty big bubbles. But this is one of the paler New England IPAs that I've come across in recent times, I have to say. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use, 2, the length of your wort boil, any adjuncts that you put in are going to affect the colour, and any barrel aging that you do. But when it comes to New England IPAs, we don't really have to care about those latter 2 variables. But this one is definitely one of the paler ones. I always enjoy describing these beers in terms of the colour of fruit juice, and I would say this one is a little bit more like a kind of pineapple juice or something like that. It has a real pale quality to it, but you can see it is pretty damn opaque. There's 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass there, and a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head, and the head incidentally has just faded away to be a little bit of a ring, and a few wispy things on the top there. But remember, level of haze in these beers depends on the oak content, wheat content, and the yeast. There's not really a rule about as you go up the alcohol scale, you've got more oats and wheat and things, so the haziness should increase. It doesn't always work like that. But yeah, in terms of what you'd expect appearance-wise from a New England IPA, it looks very, very nice, but definitely on the lighter end of the spectrum in terms of its colour, but nothing overly surprising about that. Other than what we've said so far, I don't think we need to say anything else about the appearance of this beer. So let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on. Yeah, again, pretty much as you would expect from the style. Now, I will say straight away, this beer is not in its freshest condition, but it's still in pretty decent condition. I'm drinking this one because I had a problem with my computer chip, as I explained. I do have some IPAs that are sitting there that are a little bit older, but they should still be in good condition. And this one smells good. So I'm going to say straight away, this one for me, the first impression I have of this, it's big and bright and juicy. There's a good strong green component in there, and it also has a little bit of wheaty bitiness to it. That's my first impression of it, so I'm curious to see how that's going to translate into the actual flavour when we taste it. But yeah, aroma wise, this is very nice. So, backbone of the beer. You can smell a little bit of that fresh white bread, hedgehog bread crust. That's forming the backbone of the beer. There's lots of soft and fluffy white bread in there. At the back of the nose, you can definitely get a little bit of that kind of wheaty bitiness coming out of it. It's got a nice kind of oaty creaminess to it as well, but you can smell the oats are getting slightly dry. And for me, that's usually an indicator of how old your New England IPA is. The younger it is, the more creamy they're going to smell, but the older the New England IPA is, the more kind of, that you're going to get a bit more dryness out of the oats at that point in time. So that's worth bearing in mind. So you can smell a little bit of the dryness in there, there's a bit of creaminess too, and you can smell the wheat sort of thickening out everything, and you get the bitiness from that at the back of the nose too. Going by the aroma, I think there is a wee bit of golden promise in this one, because you do get a little bit of that butterscotchy, butter candy sort of thing. We do have to remember that at the same time, this is an 8% New England double, so you need a little bit of kind of brown sugary sweetness in there just to cover the alcohol and so on. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's golden promise or something like that in here. There is a lovely wee bit of sweetness to this beer. So yeah, I like how this one goes together, needless to say. Yeah, lovely little bit of Werther's Original sweetness, big oaty kind of note in there, slight dryness to the oats, the wheat's smoothing it out, a lot of white bread, a little bit of bread crust, maybe a wee touch of crackery character, and a bit of wheaty bitiness at the back of the nose. I think that covers the malt base, to be honest with you. On the hoppy side of things then, the green component first. Teeny little bit of earthiness to this one, but I would say that overall this beer really leans toward a more floral, aromatic sort of thing. Yeah, it's got a very bright floral aromaticity to it. I wouldn't describe it as spicy. I would say it's just more kind of bright and quite pungent. You've got some nice grassiness to it as well, and I would say that the grassy side of the green component is quite zesty, to be honest with you. I'd be curious to know what hops are in this, because it didn't say anywhere. And in recent times, I have to admit, I've been drinking a lot of lagers and stuff like that, so perhaps my knowledge of the different kind of hopping IPAs has gone down a wee bit, but we'll see. But yeah, green component for me, nice, very bright, pungent floral note, and a good little bit of zesty, grassy character to it as well. The green component is very, very nice. Remember that New England IPAs rely on mainly late edition hopping and dry hopping, whereas West Coast IPAs have both of those, but also early edition hopping, and that is what gives them the bitterness. Early edition hopping is the one that gives you your IBU count for the most part. Late addition and dry hopping. Late addition will give you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma, and dry hopping is all about flavour and aroma. So yeah, on the fruity side of things for me, this one, I do get quite a little bit of pungent passion fruit out of this. I don't know if I'd go as far as grapefruit, but definitely a bit of a pungent passion fruit. Yeah, passion fruit for sure. Big juicy mango. Definitely. You're definitely getting a wee bit of a pineapple note as well. But this is very zesty. Yeah, passion fruit, mangoes. The mangoes almost have a bit of greenness to them. It's almost got a little bit of a kind of guava type note to it as well. And I think there's a wee bit of orange in there. This smells familiar, so I wouldn't be surprised if Mosaic is in here, because I'm getting that bright tangerine orange. So I think this could be something along the lines of like Galaxy or Mosaic. I think it's something I have come across before. So yeah, passion fruit for sure. A juicy mangoey, but maybe slightly green guava. Little bit of apricot underneath, of course. Maybe a wee bit of a juicier pineapple. Idaho 7 wouldn't surprise me in this either, because it's got that lovely softness to the tropical fruits the more that you smell of it. But then yeah, there is a good bit of an orangey tangerine character for me, so wouldn't be surprised that Mosaic, but of course, you know, Amarillo, Mandarina Bavaria, even there are other orangey hops out there that could do that job. But overall, it smells very nice, and it's a solid smelling New England IPA, this one. So as I always say, take a wee bit of time to enjoy the aroma, but I think it is about time that we have a taste of this one. So let's get stuck in. This is the Uno 2, Uno 2, whatever, 8% New England Hazy Imperial Double IPA from Stigbergets Bryggeri in Gothenburg, brewed in collaboration with Omnipollo, but I think Omnipollo might be the home brewery. But yeah, anyway, let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, it's nice actually. I think this one, first impression is it is quite a wheaty leaning beer, this one. I do get quite, the first thing that comes out, big green component, good little bit of wheaty bitiness, and I really do like that about it. So yeah, this is quite a bitey New England, but we have to remember this isn't in its freshest condition. We do need to bear that in mind with this review. But yeah, once again, it gives you everything you want from the style. And you wouldn't expect any less from either Omnipollo or from Stigbergets. So yeah, let's break this down a little bit and see how we go. So malt base first off, then middle third of your palate. And I think I would say with this beer, this is one of these ones that's quite straightforward, straight shooting. It sticks to the style profile well, but yeah, it sticks to the style profile well, but you know, it's just well crafted. You just have to say that. So middle third of your palate, then you can feel that kind of fresh bread crusty character that forms the backbone. For me, on top of that, you do get a little bit of a sort of Jacob's cream cracker type thing, but then right on top of that, you can feel the wheat. And for me, the wheat actually has a little bit of bitiness in this one, and it comes quite a bit forward actually. You are getting some of the wheaty bitiness in the middle third of your palate with this beer, which is really interesting. So yeah, that's definitely something to keep an eye on. Yeah, I like this for sure. On that, in that sense, I've not had a nice kind of more wheaty leaning, bitey New England in a wee while, so that's kind of that is definitely quite interesting. So yeah, bread crust, Jacob's cream cracker, wheaty bitiness, and then on top of that, you can feel the more kind of fluffy white bready note from the. You can feel the more fluffy white bready note from the barley malt, and then on top of all that, kind of down the middle line of your palate, you're getting the oatiness out of this beer, and you are, in fairness, getting what I mentioned. As I mentioned earlier, you're getting a little bit of that oaty dryness as you go out from the centre of your palate toward the edges. You're starting to get a little bit of that oaty dryness in there, which is quite good. So yeah, you can feel that, and in the dead centre of your palate, you're just getting a little circle there, and that's where you know, you're getting a little bit of that butterscotchy, butter candy sort of thing coming out of it. And yeah. So that's the alcohol, of course. But yeah, in the dead centre of your palate, you get a little bit of that butterscotchy, butter candy sort of thing, and that's where your alcohol is being covered up. Maybe as you move further out from that, you start to get a little bit of a McVitie's style. You do start to get a little bit of a biscuity note as you move out towards the extremities of that middle third of the palate. But yeah, I think the oaty dryness and the wheaty bitiness are there. As you move further back into the back third of your palate, you can feel the how do you say you start to get more of the you can feel the wheaty note coming out of the beer once again. So back third of the palate, back third of the palate, you can feel the bread crust gets a little bit more grainy, more bitter flavours come out on the back of the palate, of course. But then on top of that, you can feel the wheat, the sort of layer of wheat, and that has a real kind of bitiness to it. Then on top of that, you're getting the kind of softer yeasty notes, like a really airy, soft white bread in this one. So you can feel on the back third of your palate, the flavour is definitely taller. Then as you come further forward, it just condenses down, and that's that. So that covers the yeasty and malty side of the beer. Let's look at the hoppy side of things then. So yeah, edges of the palate. Back corners of the palate, I do get a little bit of earthiness. That makes me wonder about Mosaic, because I've always found that Mosaic just gives you a little hint of kind of earthiness. But as you come further forward, you do get quite a deep, you do actually get quite a deep and slightly spicy note to it. It does actually have a little bit of pine resin to it, which is kind of interesting. It does remind me in a way of Columbus. You know, Columbus always gave you that sort of spicy character. So I wonder if they have put a little bit more bittering hop in this one. Pretty much any high alpha acid hop is capable of giving you this sort of thing, but the spiciness I'm getting out of this one really reminds me of old school Columbus. So yeah, very quickly when you move forward from that very slight earthiness, you get this big, deep, slightly spicy kind of floral aromaticity coming out of the beer. But then as you reach the front corners of the palate, it reaches a kind of peak, if you like. And I'm just wondering, you know, should I say there's a little bit of pine resin in there? Because I could be convinced that there is. So maybe there's a wee touch of pine resin in the sides of your palate there. But round the front curve of the palate, it's definitely more zesty and more kind of grassy. So keep that in mind, that the hoppy component of this beer is quite present. And sometimes you can get that green component from dry hopping, but I like it. Front third of the palate then, let's focus on the fruity side of the beer. The border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of that bready build up there again. Then the base of the front third of the palate is, pardon me, definitely more kind of smooth and white bready. So yeah, I like that. But then on top of that front third of your palate, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. And I will say on this note, the beer is pretty close to what you expect from the aroma. So at the back of the front third of your palate, definitely a kind of stronger passion fruit in there. But then as you move forward, you start to get a more kind of juicy, mango-y note out of it. And there is a wee bit of a green quality to the mango. I've always found that guava tastes like a slightly greener mango. So I could be tempted to say guava with that. But then yeah, as you come further forward, there's a little bit of an apricot-y sort of dryness underneath. Maybe a wee bit of papaya, something like that. I wouldn't be surprised. The kind of softer tropical notes are making me think Idaho 7. So maybe Galaxy, Idaho 7. Galaxy, I think, to give you a bit of the pungency. But then yeah, as you move further forward into the front third of your palate, I think there's a wee hint of like an orangey note with this one. As you move toward the kind of front half of that front third of your palate, I should say, I think there's a wee bit of a more kind of oily, orangey sort of thing to this one. Could be a bit of Mosaic, as I say, because of the earthiness and the fact that it's a kind of nice bright tangerine. But yeah, I think it goes together really well in that regard. Actually, the fruity side of this beer is nice. You've got a pungent tropical note, a bit of a dry tropical note, and a slightly more oily, orangey character to this. So it shows you the whole spectrum of what different hops can do actually. So yeah, gets a thumbs up from me in that regard. I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour profile of this one, to be honest with you. A more wheaty, bitey New England Double. and it's nicely balanced with its fruity characteristics, but quite a big green component as well, which is interesting. To round off then, mouthfeel wise, yeah, I mean, top end of mid-bodied for me. Carbonation is quite smooth. It's got a bit of a creaminess to it, but also a little bit of wetness and a very slight oiliness. IBU wise, I think this is maybe a bit higher. I think this might be about 40-ish IBUs, maybe 50 at a push. Malt base, as we said, is quite smooth. There's a bit of sweetness in there, but it leans towards the wheaty, bitey side of things, and the fruity character for me just has a slight oiliness to it, but also a bit of a zip because of the strong passion fruit that comes out of this one. But yeah, overall, it's a really nicely well done beer. It doesn't do anything surprising for the style, but definitely one of the more bitter and wheaty leaning New Englands that I've had from either Omnipollo or Stigbergets for quite some time. But yeah, I think that's a good place to round off there. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from both Omnipollo and Stigbergets, and we will no doubt return to these breweries in the near future. But this was the Uno 2, whatever we're going to call it, 8% New England Double IPA, and it was pretty damn good, I have to say. So I'll see you guys in another review very soon. Make sure you check out these breweries, check out my social media, check out theirs, and I'll see you guys again soon. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.